News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
And I'm Allan Gilbreth with Dark Oak Media and Press.
And I'm Maximilian, having to put up with these fools again.
Allan, don't take a sip of Diet Coke 3 seconds before you go on the air.
Just as that bubble gets right in your throat, you're like, ugh.
And Allan sounded a little tongue-tied this morning. We better tighten up our operation here. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. As people have been doing, Allan, I'm really enjoying our text line and our voicemail offerings that we've been receiving during the week.
It's getting busier.
Yeah, it's handy, and of course we want you to do it during the show as well. So, and also we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook and check out the action over there. I already posted the must-have item of the week, and we may be posting other things because later in the show, Allan, we are going to be hitting, of course, our great moments in building history. And Max is sort of, you're spearheading this one, I believe, right?
Indeed.
Okay. It's the Burj Khalifa. Did I pronounce that correct?
Burj Khalifa.
Burj Khalifa in Dubai. I believe most people are familiar. It looks like a giant
seen
needle.
The postcard. Yeah, we've all seen the picture.
It looks like a spire from Lord of the Rings that they just stuck in the middle of this in the desert. There are so many building challenges involved with this that we want to really showcase the architectural triumph that this structure is, and the implications it might have for the way our homes are built in the future. There's all sorts of innovation with
There's a lot going on in that building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we have to think about in the future and everything rather than building out, building up.
Yeah, we probably will, Max. Allan, I suppose we need to, if you caught last week's show, you know that Allan and I, we got into a little ladder debate, I don't know if this is going to be a point counterpoint, but I feel like
just let me use the button.
Yeah, Max just wants to use the button. We'll probably at least wrap up that discussion because we have different opinions, and I'm talking about those multi-function ladders. I'm not talking about a good old extension ladder or a good old A-frame. I'm talking about those funky ones that fold up like a pretzel.
That's okay, Joe. Step by step, I'll prove you wrong.
Okay. I want to. What's interesting? Hey, Allan, I'm always proud to admit that I'm here to learn as well. I'm always open to learning about myself and the psychology of home improvement. And I'm in the middle of a pretty serious kitchen remodel at my own house. We're going pedal to the metal on this thing. We're doing everything. And I'm learning a lot about the way our mind works and the way we come to our I'm going to call this breaking old design habits, because when it comes to design, I feel like we can fall into a rut, and to get the best results, I think we need to step out of our comfort zone sometimes.
I don't think you can fall. I think most people are firmly entrenched in a rut.
Yeah,
yes.
so maybe so opening your mind to new possibilities. Allan, I have the next $1 trillion idea. Forget this next $1 billion idea. We're going to get to that. We've got other stuff. I better stop teasing. Of course, we have our must-have item of the week. And again, we'd like to take your calls or text at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. Well, speaking of the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, we got a couple this week, Allan.
Good.
This first one, it sounded like it was addressed to you because this deals with chemical question. I guess this is a chemical question.
Okay.
What is nobody left a name here. It says, what is the point of primer? What does it really do? Okay. What? Because, we've seen these.
That's a
pretty
great
blunt
question.
Well, I mean, if you have some raw wood, you might go, well, I'm just slapping. The paint sticks to it.
It does.
Or metal or something. But that's kind of a blunt, to the point question. But yeah, what is the point of primer, and what does it do?
I'm enjoying the fact that somebody is standing there in a big box store looking at least half the paint section.
Oh, yeah.
Going, what does any of this stuff do?
Right. And look at all the different breakdowns here.
And there's probably 20 different types of something that does the exact same thing.
Sure.
And I'm being kind of vague on that because I don't want to call out specific brands, but there are different kinds of coatings for different jobs.
Right.
And like you said, you and I are both working on a big wood project. Well,
wood's the main thing I think of because of how it,
Oh, no, I'm thinking of all kinds of metal doors and all kinds of stuff. And the biggest thing that a primer does is it begins forgiving the sins of the past.
There you go. Yeah.
That is the biggest point. What you really have to get in your head here is not what am I doing right now, but what is the actual finished product supposed to look like?
Sure.
So if you've got little minor imperfections and stuff, let's say we're doing a door jamb. So the door jamb's been there for a while, and it's been bumped and nicked and this and that. And you go back and you clean it up the best you can, maybe give it a little sanding and like that. You expose a little wood. All right, you've got all of the past is still there.
Right.
Any chemical that's been on it, any oil that's been on it. And a lot of people forget that everything alive is oily.
Well, that's probably a good point. Yeah.
We are like little grease balls, if you know.
All right, yeah, and that doesn't agree with paint. Paint doesn't like to.
It really doesn't. Yeah. And I'm going to point out, like, if you ever go to a really high end fancy library where they have really rare books,
right?
They put on gloves because they don't want human skin,
sure.
human oils touching things.
Right.
That's how much moisture we produce as humans. So, all right, so we've got this finish here, and a good primer in this particular case will precondition the wood, get the pores and everything in the condition you want them to produce that beautiful end product that you want. It also gives your paint a good cohesive surface to work with.
Right, because that's what I was going to say. You know, it's funny you used a door jamb because that's the perfect example. If you look at the top of the door jamb up, 6 feet or so, it's probably pretty clean. It's probably undamaged.
Untouched most of the time.
Everything at the level where your hands come into contact, it's scratched up, it's dirty, it's oily. So
from your shoulders down, every place you touch.
So one of the goals with that, I suppose, is you clean it, and then once you prime it, you have like an even playing field. So when you paint the entire door jamb, you're going to get even result. You're not going to have one area that's going to take the paint differently than that.
Exactly.
But this is sort of a question because this is just sort of something I've always perceived, Allan, is primers aren't they made to penetrate deeper than paint? Because
yes,
it's usually thinner. Obviously, primer doesn't cut. Like if you get a white primer and you paint it over wood, it's going to almost look like you pickled it. But that's okay. It's basically
it's almost
you're
a whitewash kind of thing going on.
Right. So it can dig deeper and I almost look at it as like roots, like grass roots or tree roots or something. You want it as deep as it can, and primer is designed to do that.
Right.
So
and then you have other products that are actually designed to be sealants.
Right.
And they will also act as a primer. And this is where I'm going to call out a brand because everybody uses called Kills.
Yeah.
And
you can't see this because you're not in the studio, but a red flag just appeared over my head.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Al, because this might, and get the point counterpoint music ready.
I'm about to trigger Joe on purpose here.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Of certain of these products are actually designed to seal in something. This is not a product I would use on a brand new project.
Right.
So I'm going into a 50 or 60-year-old house where maybe there had been a heavy smoker in the past.
Oh, that's a good, that's a good example because we've seen that.
And there is 50 years of stuff eaten into the walls.
Mm-hmm.
Or more bizarrely, maybe there had been a fire. Maybe there had been an incident. There are reasons why we literally honestly want a clean start without ripping out the sheetrock.
Right. Okay.
So in this particular case of maybe you've had a spill or stain or something like that, and now you really want these walls sealed.
Sure.
And that's where these products come in. This is not something I would use on that table that I was going to paint.
Now, can I say that? Okay, I don't think this is actually a point counterpoint. You and I probably actually agree on this, but I want to clarify some stuff because everybody knows Kills, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
We all know the brand. We've all seen it, right?
Okay, well, I think some people forget that there's more than one type of,
There's about 8.
There's about 8.
Yeah.
And you don't just grab any one of them and assume, for one thing, that stuff, if you get the oil base or whatever that base, the fumes on that are really, like, they'll knock you out.
Yeah, they're getting run out of the building.
Don't grab that and just roll it on top of the ceiling or something like that. The other thing is, different types of kills have different types of finishes. What my beef, Alan, is that I've seen people where, like, for example, perfect example, you have a water stain on the ceiling, and you grab which ceilings are almost always flat. You know,
Right.
the paint is flat, and they get the kills, or they get the spray kills, and they spray it on. Then they paint the ceiling, and they wonder why the paint didn't adhere or it crackled around there, because the kills, the red label leaves a very glossy finish.
Yes.
It's almost like a shellac, and latex paint is not going to stick to that.
It doesn't like it, no.
And especially flat paint. My suggestion is they make one that has that dries with a flat finish. That's the one I go to. I want to see it's called like stain blocker or something.
Right. It's a latex based product.
Well, they even have an oil one that dries flat.
Right.
If you're because latex primers don't typically cover the stains as well. Like I've seen them bleed through. Like there's other brands, and they, so I guess my big thing is just using it correctly, because I've seen it misused, and that's where I get annoyed.
Well, and that's why I thought I would go ahead and mention it, because again, it take the extra 30 seconds and read the label,
Right.
and make sure you picked up the proper product for your application. For those of you that have pets, there are applications designed for the lovely things your pets can do to the lower walls. There are applications for, other things. Sometimes when you get into, you and I have done some older buildings together.
Sure.
And you get into some of these 60, 70, 80-year-old buildings, or in my case, some of these commercial buildings, and you honestly have no idea what has happened in here before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this could have been a perfume lab, for all you know. There could be chemicals penetrating halfway through the gypsum.
Yeah, you get that. You stand there and you're looking. Okay, where did that stain come from? How is it? It was like a Sherlock Holmes detective
Oh my gosh!
thing, so.
And some of these things, you just look at them and go, not even going to ask.
Yeah.
I think there was a horror movie filmed in here, and that is when that idea of a good primer or something to go ahead and let you get past the past, more or less,
Right.
and go on and get the finish that you're looking for. But it is important. Choose the proper primer or sealant for what you're doing.
Yeah. So just to answer the question, the primer is important. Yes, dear listener. The point of it is to give you an even playing field, to just, but like Alan said, use it correctly. So, okay. All right. Well, we got a second text.
Oh,
we better, now this one's a little more involved, and I feel like this one is right in your wheelhouse, although this is stuff I deal with as well, Alan. So,
Okay.
hey guys, my wife and I are newly married, and we plan on doing a lot of renovations to our home, and we hope to do a lot of the work ourselves. Well, that'll test the marriage, won't it? So no, we salute that.
That's a trial by fire, Joe. That's a trial by fire.
I would greatly appreciate it if you could talk about construction permits and other regulations we may have to deal with.
Oh.
Thanks, Brian and Calicia.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy, Alan,
that is the question of the month.
And you deal so because I deal with the projects I do. If you're new to Tool Talk Radio, a lot of the projects I deal with are things that are more, I would call it leisurely, not leisurely, but they're not necessary home addition. They're things that people do to add to their lifestyle, like a deck or a patio cover,
pergola,
a screen,
that kind of stuff.
They don't call me and ask for an emergency pergola to be built.
No,
These are things people say. But Alan, you're in the trenches. You're dealing with those. You deal with everything: plumbing, electricity, and it's in commercial situations. And you're even in the healthcare business, so
right.
You've got added regulations. So I feel like this is good to know, because some of the projects that Brian and Calicia are going to do are, you could just do them yourself, and others you are going to need a permit. So let's talk about some permitting things. So
Okay. All right. The rule of thumb, let me just kind of give you a basic idea. Are you making a major change?
Good.
Yes or no? Just really simple. If the answer is we're moving a wall, the answer is ding, ding, ding. Yes, you are making a major change.
Because it could be load bearing. So
it could be a wide variety of things.
Right.
Oh my gosh, and please do not guess.
Yeah.
I know it costs money to have somebody come out to your house and possibly give you an obvious answer.
Right.
But don't guess. We have a little segment we like to call 30 Years of Stupid, don't we, Joe?
Yeah, we've seen.
Because
unless you want to
Please
just give
let
us
me push that
content for
button again.
segment. Yeah.
Well, it's just you just don't know what you're going to get when you open a wall.
In that vein, I will say this: if you're adding a bathroom, if you're moving a gas line, if you're moving a drain, if you're putting a new faucet in, you don't need a permit for
that's
that.
maintenance.
That's maintenance. But moving something or creating something new, if you're going to turn a hallway closet into a bathroom, obviously you need permits for that. So yeah.
And let me throw in a couple of answers, because I always deal with people like, oh, I can't believe I got to get a permit for this, and then some joker's got to come out here and look at it before I can. That's going to make this go on for 3 days longer than I want it to go on, and I've heard all the fussing.
Right.
All right, what you don't get to hear are the horror stories. That's the reason we have that permit.
Yeah, we actually you don't want to buy a house where nobody checked their,
the things we have found.
Right.
I just, suddenly I'm just having this just avalanche of memories going. And you open up the wall and found the two GFIs plugged into each other in the wall, where if one of them had tripped, you'd have never figured out where the electricity was.
Can I ask you something? Because here's what I want to because your experience and mine is a little different, because like I said, you're dealing with commercial, you're dealing with state regulations,
Yes.
you deal with the heart. Yours is like, the nuclear options and stuff.
I actually deal with more stats than a nuclear facility. Yes.
Okay, so my experience with this started out when I was a young homeowner. This is our first home. If you're new to Tool Talk Radio, I bought a home that it was 2 bedrooms with a carport and a little storage room in the back, and I converted it basically into a 3-bedroom house, and that became a pretty big living area. So I obviously had to get permits for that.
Right.
So I called the Shelby County, what is it called? It's Shelby County
Code
Enforcement. And I showed them my plans, and throughout the process I had to have them check back, because we were actually even thinking of adding a bathroom. We were,
Okay.
So my experience was was at first I thought they were going to answer. I thought they were going to kind of map out what I was supposed to do. Like, okay. What I learned quickly was that just because one guy comes out and tells you something doesn't mean the next guy is going to tell you the same thing.
Right.
So what I've eventually learned and what I applied to my business is you want a very detailed description, and even if you have sketches and drawings, the more information you give them, the more cooperative they are. And they also want to be comfortable that you know what you're doing. They don't want to just say, yeah, go ahead, grab the sledgehammer and whack that wall out of the, So if you show them your detailed plans, and there are things you might have to hire somebody to. I'm not going to do my own electrical wire.
Right.
I'm going to let an electrician run that. I'm going to, let a HVAC. But my experience was that you get what you give out of that. If you're cooperative and you show a level of whatever, they're going to be very cooperative with you.
If you walk in with cocktail napkins and a Sharpie,
they're not.
They're going to look at you like heaven help us.
Yeah. So have a plan and try to make a nice, impressive presentation. You're going to get because it is a process. You don't just call them. You get one visit. There's probably going to be 2 or 3 visits involved just for one.
Well, and again, this is not for replacing a counter. This isn't even for, that vanity's been in this bathroom for 30 years and we need a new vanity.
Right.
We're not talking about that. That is basically light, that's basically light renovation and usually just maintenance.
Right.
If you're going to put in a new sink and there's a pre-existing sink, there's a process to that to do it properly. You don't want it to leak and all that, but it's not a permitted type thing.
Sure.
Now, if you've got that garage and you're looking at it and going, all right, that's going to make a great living room.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time to get some plans drawn up. And I mean, be exact. Where exactly do you want to put wall sockets? Where do you want to have an air vent? Where's the window going to go? What kind of flashing are you going to use?
That's another good example, because in the garage, for all you know, you may have to pour a new floor or something. We did the exact same thing. In our carport, we had to pour about 4 or 5 inches of concrete to level it out because it wasn't level.
Right.
You had to also, there was quite a bit of maneuvering to do in there just because of drainage and stuff like that. You got to make sure it works. But the other thing too is you also have to think about if you live in an area with a neighborhood association, if it's an interior change, you're probably okay. But any exterior changes you start to make, you might be dealing with
Yeah,
those.
check with that HOA first.
Yeah, because that's what I deal more with what I do, because I do a lot of these outside ones. But that's more of that's not necessarily code enforcement. That's making sure that if they want continuity in the neighborhood,
Right.
they don't want you to paint your house purple and
When everybody else isn't.
put a
Right,
50-foot watchtower in your front yard like Allan has, or something like that.
That's why I don't live in an HOA.
I got a couple more points I wanted to bring up before we move along, but that great question. I like that. We don't talk about permitting enough, so
We need to do more.
well, we're permitting you to come back after the break. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar Memphis. We'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Extraordinary events call for extraordinary actions. We form an allegiance to use sudden violence. Do you have the tools to turn a wooden mop handle into a stake? Which size?
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
That's the kind of can-do, blind obedience you need in your employees. I salute them. Way to go, Creed. Your model employee.
Especially this time of year.
Absolutely. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from Dark Oak Media, and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
Whittling the broom handle.
Yeah, he's already got it out. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio at Facebook and check out the action over there. I've already posted the must-have item of the week. We'll probably put some other things. It's also sort of a one-stop shop, because if you want to hear any of our past episodes, well, you can go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, but also Allan posts links there, so you can go to Facebook and see kind of everything. And it's a quick
you can go to
resource.
tooltalkradio.com,
Sure.
or you can go to Facebook and look up Tool Talk Radio and follow the links. And with Spotify and YouTube, you can take us with you.
Yeah, check it out anytime. I will say this, it makes for good, like if you're working on a perfect thing to do. Here's my suggestion. You're getting ready to work on your kitchen this weekend, or you're getting ready to work on your yard or something. Just put on Spotify, just start binge listening to Tool Talk Radio, and you'll feel motivated and inspired, and you might even get some ideas on what to do. But it puts you in the right frame of mind for your home improvement work.
Absolutely.
You know who else always is in the right frame of mind for home improvement work? Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration.
They are indeed.
What would you rate that as a transition, Allan? How many you give? Maybe 6 out of 10?
But see, knowing them, that's about a 7, because they really are ready for you.
Yeah.
They're ready to help.
Oh yeah, they're I mean, and they've been helping this year. This whole
Wow.
really
It's
ever
been a
since
summer,
2020, whenever this whole supply chain thing, the dynamic changed. And
Yes.
some people didn't make it. Some companies did
lot of
not
companies
weather
did not, yeah.
weather the storms. However, Brown Refrigeration always navigates these things. This isn't their first rodeo. They've been around since the 70s.
Late 70s. Yeah.
Whenever Kenny Rogers, the Gambler, came out, I think that's the same year they launched Brown Refrigeration. So go to Google, folks, and find that. But if you need any HVAC needs, if you need clean air, boy, the clean air it's such a big deal out here in the Mid-South, and especially in this time of where we're still talking about COVID and things like that. To have the Remy Halo system as part of your HVAC system it's really sort of just a must.
It is.
And it can be installed. Maybe your HVAC system is just perfectly, it's hunky-dory, but you can always add this later.
Yes.
I don't know if we always showcase that, Allan, but you can control it all with the smart home system. And of course, if you have any, if you need a system, they have great financing as well. Maybe you didn't budget for that new HVAC system. They have all sorts of options to get you set up. But also keep your HVAC system tuned up. That's really critical, because you want it to be as long-lasting as you can. And we encourage you to think of your HVAC company the way you would think of a good mechanic. If you find that that good car mechanic, boy, you stick with them.
Stick with them.
And so it's
Absolutely.
the same thing with Brown Refrigeration. They're great people. They have a great business culture, very professional, and they're very responsive. They answer their phones. They get to the job quickly. They take
yes.
care of business. So you can get in touch with them any day at 901-362-1881 or go to their website, brownref.com. And Larry, if you're listening, we need you. You're due back up. Getting him on the air is tough. The guy's busy.
Well,
Imagine
that
that.
happens when you're good. Yeah.
He works a lot. So, hey, Alan, before we move along, I did want to wrap up a couple thoughts. We did get a text from a man and his wife. They're newlyweds, so this is going to be kind of an interesting dynamic. They want to do a lot of work to their house, and they were asking about permits, construction permits, and regulations that they're going to have to deal with. More or less, you gave us a good rule of thumb. You said that any, we would call these, I don't know, any changes that are sort of noteworthy, like removing a wall or adding a bathroom.
The word is substantial. If you're gonna, if you're looking at something and you go, that'd be kind of cool if we took this out or we added this in, chances are you're going to need a permit.
If you're going to change the molding on your door trim, you don't need a permit. No. Okay, but if you're going to remove that wall, you do.
You probably do.
If you're going to add water, if you're going to add anything like that, you want adding an electrical feature. You can change the light fixture, but if you're going to move the wire, you need a permit. So, but we didn't really discuss the outside because that's what I deal with mostly. In terms of, I mentioned before the break, neighborhood associations, that's basically to do with the design. They don't, they may have a regulation that says you can only build this. I've dealt with this a lot. You can only build a patio cover this tall.
Right.
It has to have this type of architecture. It has to have whatever, which I do understand because certain neighborhoods, they want a certain continuity in there. However, even if you're going to do something as simple as building a fence or putting a little deck out there, you got to call 811 first because what is that?
Well,
there's some funny commercials from that.
Yeah, there's some great commercials for that. Well, you see, underground, especially in the Mid-South, we love to bury stuff.
Right.
Like power lines or gas lines or sewer lines.
Yeah.
And I assure you, each one of those has a horrible surprise waiting for you.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to accidentally cut the power to the neighborhood.
Right.
And you definitely don't want to accidentally crack open a sewer line.
No. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've seen both. Or,
water. And the shocking thing people figure out accidentally if you hit a pressurized water line is just how big a hole that can dig how fast.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
It'll eat your yard if you're not careful.
The other important thing about a fence is, especially if you're in a newer kind of neighborhood, is you gotta establish where your property lines are. Your neighbor may not appreciate if you built your fence 4 feet into their property or something.
They get a little
that.
touchy about that sometimes.
So you wanna understand that. The rule of thumb I was given by some different code enforcement guys that I know, because like I said, I deal with a lot of outside additions. They said if you're adding living space, if you're adding living space, absolutely you have to, you have to get permits. However, there's things that I do that I don't need a permit for. Like if there's a slab in the backyard or there's a deck, and I'm gonna build a patio cover. If it's not enclosed and if it's just basically open or screened in, I don't necessarily need a permit. I still need to check with the neighborhood association for design approval. But the rule of thumb I would say is if it's living space, absolutely you're going to need a permit. If it's not, it might be questionable, and it never hurts to just call and find out. They'll set you straight, and you just don't want to find out later, especially when you go to sell the house.
Oh.
And the checklist is there because it's going to show up in the records of what you did, and so I hope that was useful because I think this is an important topic, Alan.
Well, one thing I've run into occasionally, Joe, is of somebody wanting to put in an outbuilding. And there is actually a formula for that at code enforcement as to how big of an outbuilding you can have based on your lot size, location, and size of your house.
Another big one is how far from the street it is, because you might be on maybe you're putting a big shed for your, or you're putting your workshop. You want to build a workshop or something.
You're going to put the work cave out there.
Yeah, they may say, well, it can't be closer than 40 feet from the street, which seems odd, but that's our neighborhood. Perfect example. We have a thing called a setback.
Right.
We have to be set back, and it's 40 feet. And when you look at it, you're like, well, what's the difference if I'm 30 feet? Well, that's the setback. That's the rule. So
we drew the line at 40,
right?
Because we don't want your shed, if it blows up and catches on fire,
to get in the street.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So lots of stuff, but don't let that intimidate you. We salute your, we want you to do these projects. Just do them. Where they're
just
not
do them safely and do them legally.
Right. All right, Allan, I've got something. You and I, in our exhaustive show prep yesterday, we were discussing something, and an idea sort of came to mind, and I started researching it a little bit. And there's been talk about this, but nobody's ever taken action. And I have what I would call the next $1 billion, possibly the next $1 trillion idea. And you're the scientist, so I wanted to run it by you and see what all the obstacles were.
We'll slap some tennis shoes on it and sail it by here. What do we got?
Okay, well, a bolt of lightning. We're talking about lightning, folks. Mm-hmm. And actually, a little later in our show, we're going to talk about lightning some more. So I thought this would be a good way to tee it up. Okay, it's full of It's got how many? 10 million volts of electricity
or more.
It's 20. Yeah, that's true. Depending on the size of the the size of the bolt. A lot of lightning, of course, happens up in the sky. The majority of lightning is up in clouds. The smaller fraction hits the ground and hits things. And a very small amount hits people or hits your house or whatever. However, of course it's like 27,000 degrees or something. Pretty hot.
As hot as the sun on occasion, yes.
I thought they said when I did my research, it's 5 times the heat of the surface of the sun, which surprises me. I thought the sun would be like 1,000,000 degrees or something. But here's my question. That is a lot of energy. That's a lot of power. Mm-hmm. Could we capture? Okay, first of all, could we attract lightning, which I believe we could?
Oh,
could
that's
we do
easy.
Something to attract lightning, capture the lightning, and harness that electricity? In other words, I'm just thinking of what you could do with 10 million volts. In other words, I'm not saying you have a battery down there and you blast the lightning into the battery in it, because it would probably blow up. But surely there's something we could do, Allan. I don't want to waste any free energy that we could get. So what do we need to do to make this happen?
So, Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah. Hey, everybody laughs at all these innovative ideas, and then 100 years from now, everybody's going to be doing it.
And then 100 years later, you're going, oh, that's just everyday stuff.
Right. So, we're trying to get ahead of the curve here.
All right. Well, trying to pick the place to start here. The best place to start.
The easy thing is attracting.
The best place to start is Benjamin Franklin.
Okay.
Let's go back to Benji, and let's go back to the legend of the kite. So basically what he was attempting to do, according to the legend, but now whether or not he actually ever did this is a matter of some debate.
Well, he did a variation of it with the kite and the string.
I'm going to say he did something, and this is how the story got told.
Sure.
So during a thunderstorm, he takes a kite, he gets it nice and high up in the sky, and there's a key on it, so there's something metal. So they have already extracted the information that metallic things attract lightning. Mm-hmm. And because he got it up high in the sky, lightning would therefore naturally gravitate towards it as opposed to someplace else.
Right.
Now, before Benjamin Franklin, Joe, let me paint you an interesting picture of being in a city.
Yeah.
A thunderstorm rolls in, and lightning has a tendency to hit the highest point around it.
Yeah.
So you got a nice tree in your front yard, and here's your nice thatched roof house.
Oh, yeah.
Thunderstorms were absolutely terrifying.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Because somebody's house, the church, the library, the hospital, every time there's a thunderstorm, somebody got hit by lightning.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's hard for us to imagine this because we're a couple of 100 years removed from it. But could you just imagine sitting there under a storm waiting on your house to go up in flames?
Yeah, okay. Well, I get that.
All right.
Yeah.
So here comes the lightning rod.
Right.
And now suddenly we've more or less contained lightning, and we've redirected it from your roof out into the ground.
Right.
And I'm
Where
going to
it
throw in a safety.
dissipates.
Right. I'm going to throw in a safety and this is why you need to check this around your house and make sure that wire is still connected to that thingy going into the ground.
Yeah, if you're wondering what that little metal rod is
Yeah.
with a small wire,
what the heck is that?
Make
That
sure
is
that's not,
keeping you from getting
you
blasted.
know, hit it with a weed whacker
Okay.
or something. But okay,
So,
but Alan, my
we say
question
all of
once
that
again.
to get back to all right, but we're sending lightning into the ground. Now, there are a number of tests, and I love watching these guys do this, that are measuring lightning. They actually have out in California an entire field of rocketeering.
Okay.
So a thunderstorm moves over and it starts getting a little activity. If they want to actually control a lightning strike, they will actually launch a rocket with a wire on it into the clouds. And of course, chances are it's going to get popped.
See, that's getting more to my point because
and
my
the
thought
lightning is now controlled as to where it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you do something that makes the lightning hit something and drive it into the ground. I'm thinking this is sort of an airborne combination because you want whatever is going to capture the lightning to go up into the clouds. And obviously there's only certain parts of the world where there's certain parts of the world where this probably won't work. It's not going to work in San Diego. We don't get they don't get a whole lot of lightning out there. However, there's places in the world where you get lightning regularly.
Well,
so my thought was how do you have something that would capture it and dissipate it, or at least store it or something? Because to me, the big thing is that you're dealing with 27,000 degrees in temperature, so it has to be something that's not going to just melt. And I do know enough that water is a conductor of electricity. I feel like water should be involved in this somehow, but I just wonder if this is, there's probably engineers out there that are coming up with an idea right now. I know there was a company in Houston and a company in France that started working on it, but it proved cost prohibitive with the technology they have now. But I feel like there's a way to crack this. I don't know, man.
Well, all right, Joe, since you mentioned engineering and lightning control, let's talk about an airplane wing.
Okay.
There is some dramatic engineering that allows lightning to pass through an airplane wing without it taking out the airplane wing. Because lightning, of course, you're flying along, and this is an electrostatic discharge, and an airplane is generally made of aluminum.
Right.
So they do get hit by lightning. And there is a lot of testing and a lot of engineering that went into getting lightning to pass through the wing and not actually hit the wing. So there is technology in place for, as we've already seen, attracting the lightning. We've seen technology that goes and gets it and directs it to a certain point.
Yeah.
And if we throw in an airplane wing, we now have technologies that would guide the electricity or allow the electricity to pass through something.
Yeah.
So these are all the gateways to actually capturing and controlling the energy.
Well, you mentioned something in our notes yesterday called, I think it's heat-resistant electrostatic gel. What is that? Because I feel like something like that is going to play a role in this. And I'm already assuming this is going to happen one day. I don't know. It's not gonna power everything, but it could supplement the grid, basically.
Well, this may sound like, science fiction, and we're cranking the monster up into the sky screaming, give my creation life. But this is because of the different technologies. When you start, and we've run into this many times before, Joe, where we start talking about a topic, and then you start pulling in technologies from 12 different directions.
Right.
And suddenly, there's a moment where you go, well, if we had just this much more battery, and we had something designed to take that kind of hit, like the electrostatic gel that goes into high pressure or possibly wet wire socket connections.
Right.
So we actually have gels designed to control heat, to control the electricity, to possibly slow it down or dampen it down to a level where we could use it.
Yeah.
And like you said, there have already been companies recently looking at this idea going, this might be something we can do.
And they might be still continuing their research. We just, they haven't been able to market it yet. But I feel like, and Max has discussed this, and we talked about this before. The feeling of the more advanced our technology gets, the more I think if it's going to survive, it needs to be more organic and more depending on solar. So there is no bigger source of energy than the sun. Or wind, or waterfalls, or anything. I like harnessing something that's already there that we're not digging up the ground to go get.
Well, to kind of throw in a side note, there's a lot of control in power towers.
What's that?
Well, you're driving down the street and you see the big giant aluminum structures that take the power lines overhead.
Oh, okay.
Those guys get hit by lightning with some regularity.
Sure. Yeah.
And they are actually designed to do, as we've mentioned through several other technologies, get hit by lightning, guide the lightning, let the lightning pass through without interrupting your power supply to your home, and they pass it into the ground. Now, because we've already got a power tower structure all over the country, I mean, think about this. We have thousands, tens of thousands of these metal structures already designed to carry electricity.
Sure. That's another point. Why not use what we've got right here? Well, so you mentioned something back during the ice storm. If you're new to Tool Talk Radio, and especially if you don't live in the Mid-South, you might not be aware of the big ice storm we had. I think it was February or March, and I was right in the thick of things. I had a branch that fell on the power line, on two power lines, and it was very interesting. I even posted video. If you scroll back through our Facebook page, Tool Talk Radio's Facebook page, you'll see it was basically it was sort of like a wishbone-shaped piece of wood that arched, and it hit the top part of the branch, hit the bottom of this, and it was like lightning right there. But here's something that I was curious about. I said, Allan, when I found the branch on the ground, I smelled it, and there was literally no burning smell, even though this branch was completely fried to a crisp. And you said something. You said, you know what? We think we understand electricity, but we really don't. You said there's so much about electricity we still don't know. Because, I mean, the dynamic I have is, okay, this thing just experienced 27,000 degrees of lightning, but yet I picked it up, and it wasn't even warm to the touch. Right. There's so many things that are weird about it, like electricity, that we're still, if we can tap into it, who knows?
It is a cloud of electrons doing whatever it wants to do.
That's the way you say it. Yeah, it does whatever it wants. It doesn't care what we think. It's doing whatever it wants.
Being a child of West Texas, I have seen ball lightning go rolling down the road. Oh. And I mean, that's one of the great legends of lightning. Is that
that's something to see?
And yes, it is. It will make you go back in the house.
You sure somebody didn't light a tumbleweed on fire? Or something?
I've seen that too, and they look very, very different.
Okay.
So when you're out in the desert and you're watching the static electricity of the sand and the wind and the lightning, and it's a very different experience.
Well, hey. If you're an electrical engineer and you're out there and you're either screaming at the radio that we're idiots, or if you've got the next idea, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm not going to even say if it's feasible. I'm just going to say, when can we start doing this? Because this stuff is, surely there's a way.
I'm fairly certain. Well, like you said, there's already companies working on it. It is only just a matter of time before somebody goes, let me show you how this actually works.
Right. Yeah, because I'm always optimistic about the future. I think this is the key to just, there may be a day 100 years from now when people are going to look back and go, can you believe those guys used to dig holes in the ground to get oil? Or they used to, get coal, because there's got to be cleaner ways to do this. So, but we're going to keep working on it, Didn't Electro and Spider-Man, he had a solution for that. Maybe we need to go back to that. Anyway, whatever. Hey, Allan, the first hour of Tool Talk Radio is in the can. I don't know where it went, and I don't know what can they put it in, but hour 2 is coming up, folks, so never fear. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio, News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis. We'll be right back.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook and check out the action over there. You know, join the community because you'll get alerts whenever we post something. And also, it's interactive, Allan. We want pictures. You know, send us your pictures of your home improvement triumphs.
Yes.
If you've got a question about something, send us a picture of it. That's always helpful, and it always gives us content to discuss, you know, on the air. So make sure you get in touch with us. And also, if you want to hear past episodes of Tool Talk Radio, there's links there, you know, on Spotify, YouTube. We suggest binge listening to Tool Talk, especially when you're working on your home, or you just need, you know, it puts you in the right frame of mind.
You just need to feel better about the job you're doing.
Yeah. Hey, Allan, in a minute, we are, of course, going to get to our favorite, my favorite segment of the week. I like to think all of us, it's growing into our favorite segment, you know, great moments in building history. Before we do that, if you're just tuning into Tool Talk Radio, earlier we were talking about my next idea for the next $1 trillion idea. We're skipping over the $1 billion idea. Basically, harnessing the power of lightning, capturing the electricity and storing it. And Allan, you said there, you know, we discussed the fact that there's challenges. For one thing, it's like 27,000 degrees. It could be 10 million volts all at once hitting something. So capturing it is a challenge. We're not saying it's impossible, but there are reasons for there is technology now that you pointed out during the break, Allan, that people are kind of getting into the act on this, right?
Well,
so what is this?
Well, you know, just kind of one of these little side things. You know, anytime you find an issue, there almost always crops up some kind of industry around it.
Sure.
And you know, I kind of dive down the rabbit hole, and the next thing you know, I'm looking at page after page of lightning detectors.
Okay, and then at first glance, I'm like, okay, well, that's great.
Yeah,
I can
big deal.
detect
What is
like.
it?
Then I started thinking of our friend Sherry May, who runs Live at the Garden, and they have safety issues. If there's lightning, they have to empty the park. So I'm like, she probably has that on her phone, right?
I don't think it's on her phone, but
Okay.
there are definitely devices available through a wide variety of distributors, including, you know, all the standards of that can up to 20 miles away tell you whether or not there was a lightning strike, how far away it was, and in what direction it was.
Yeah, I started thinking of all the people that probably would like to. If you're a cattle farmer, you don't want your cattle out in the field when lightning is about to roll through. Or
You're just thinking about you and I up on a roof.
Yeah, or on a roof, or if there's a football game going on. So this stuff's already there in terms of detecting the lightning, in which I believe they can detect it fairly accurately. It's just a matter of capturing it and harnessing. And like we said, if you're an electrical engineer out there, let's give us a call. Let's
we need to
team
talk.
up.
Yeah, we need to talk.
I don't know if we get a cut of any of the proceeds if they, Hey, Allan, but very interesting conversation. We're gonna continue to monitor that because it is going to happen somehow. Someday they're gonna capture electricity from lightning. Why not? Now, I don't know if this is what Jay Hill does. I know he's up on the latest technology. I know they're talking about solar-powered shingles,
Yes.
but I don't know if they're going to have lightning-powered shingles anytime soon. Probably not.
We have ways of keeping the lightning away from the shingles right now. So
Right. Well, if you've got any roofing issues or remodeling needs, we were talking about permits earlier. Jay is very well versed in that. Well, roofing these days it's all about roofing systems, and the quality of roofing materials has just gone through the roof, so to speak. Allan.
honestly,
I mean,
yes.
the technology and it looks fairly. You look at a roof and you're like, okay, well, it still looks like a roof. Well, there are subtle differences that have been made huge improvements, like a ridge cap vent. That invention alone is revolutionary.
Oh my gosh. That is such a simple and remarkably just ridiculously easy idea that
Sure.
works better than anything else in the past.
How about architectural shingles versus just those 3-tab shingles? How much more water? How much more that seals your roof? And how much? And they look better. They're cooler looking.
And not only are they cooler looking, they keep your attic cooler.
Absolutely. So, and Jay Hill is at the cutting edge of all of this. He is 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau and Housekeeping. He's a GAF Master Elite Installer who installs roofing systems, as we say. So these, for one thing, when they use the approved GAF products, these have a lifetime transferable warranty, which I still don't see how that can be possible, but it is. So if you sell your house, one of the features is if you have J Hill put one of these lifetime transferable warranty roofs on your house, that means the owner of the next, that's a big selling point. They're like, wow, that's a pretty big.
This goes with the house.
This goes with the house, which, it's almost unheard of. Also, the great thing about Jay is that he's a former insurance agent, because that is sort of critical if you have any roofing needs that might be covered by your homeowner's insurance. If you had a damage, if you got hit by lightning, if a tree fell through the roof, some of that, it's possible it's covered by your homeowner's insurance. However, that's a difficult process to navigate, but not when you call Jay Hill. He is an expert in that field, and he got my roof replaced. He got your roof replaced. He got our buddy Brandon Olmstead's roof, countless others that we know. And it's a pretty exciting thing when you think you have this insurmountable problem and suddenly Jay walks in with a solution. And also, if it's not covered by your homeowner's insurance and maybe you need a little financing, well, Jay's got relationships with 30 different lenders. And so you're going to qualify for at least half of those. And so once you qualify, you just pick and choose the terms that meet your needs the best. So there's really no reason not to call. Jay is highly qualified. He's a lot of fun to deal with, too. We're going to have him back on the air fairly soon.
Yes, very soon.
He's busy. But you can get in touch with Jay directly. You can call him at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, Max. Well, it's that time of the week. All right, Max. And
moments in.
And now.
Okay, man. Did Max have his coffee this morning?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's called pushing a button. All right.
And now,
there we go.
Maybe I just
great
felt like
moments
pushing your buttons.
in building history.
There we go. All right. And we still, if you have any clues as to who that mysterious voice is, Max isn't talking. We don't know who that could be.
Hey, you know what? This morning, the great moments in building history got off to a shaky foundation, but that's precisely the point of what we're talking about today, which is the Burj Khalifa, literally built on an unstable foundation, but by golly, it's the tallest building in the world and still standing.
Yeah. I mean, whose idea was this? It's sand, right? I mean, it's like, how many, it's like 200 feet of sand. I can't remember how far down the sand goes. I think there's a biblical verse that warns you about building on sand. And yet this building, how tall is it? Because it's way tall. It's by far the tallest building in the world, right? I mean, it's like a half a mile tall or something like that. It's pretty.
2,700. It's actually bigger than that. It's 2,720. 2,720 or 22 feet tall.
That's a half a mile.
This thing is
that's over a half mile. Because
big.
a half mile, I mean, a mile is, I want to say, 5,200 feet.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
just
unheard. So if you jumped off, how long would it take to? I mean, anyway. But the bird, I feel
you would actually reach critical velocity before you hit the ground.
I feel like most people know, but if you don't know, it looks like a giant. It looks like a needle with whatever. But Max, you found this highly interesting. You kind of went down the rabbit hole on this.
Gentle. It's kind of, if you really think about it, it's kind of a gentle pyramid shape
and a spiral.
A little bit bigger at the bottom. The next level, there's kind of a next level up. It's a little smaller, and next level up's a little smaller. So
yeah.
I also kind of liked it because of the poetics of like what it represents and everything, because not only it's built in Dubai, yes, but it's a symbol of like global peace and unity, because
we need that.
Exactly. And the person who was tasked with the job of designing the Burj Khalifa was actually Adrian Smith, who's actually kind of well known in Chicago because he's the designer of what's now called the Willis Tower, but is now called what was called the Sears Tower. Mm-hmm. He was the mastermind behind that particular structure. So I thought that was rather interesting. And not only that, but there's about 1,000 paintings that are like adorned from like inside the building and everything that are made by like international artists and everything. And so From within and from without, it is a symbol of international and global unity.
Well, that's cool. I like that, and I'm glad you mentioned the Chicago connection, Max, because one of the architects who did a lot of work in Chicago, and we're bound to showcase him in the future, is Frank Lloyd Wright, and there's a striking similarity between a building he proposed back in like 1957, and it was literally going to be a mile tall. And Max, you did a little deep dive on that. What was that all about?
It was called the Illinois.
Right.
You could say it was Frank Lloyd Wright's swan song to the universe, because it was his kind of parting words or his parting like ideas and everything. It perhaps was never intended to be constructed, but it was kind of like an aspiration. Yeah, an aspiration. Like this is possible if we just think hard enough and do hard enough. And what's interesting is that Frank Lloyd Wright intended the Illinois to actually be sort of like he kind of did it as a way of kind of countering against what like cities were becoming, because a sea of skyscrapers detracting from the natural beauty of the world. He just if you had to have a city, you just have one big tower and everything where everything is concentrated, kind of like as a focal point, and then let the rest be kind of reclaimed by nature, so to say.
Yeah, it's almost like you have a forest and a skyscraper. That's kind of his dream vision. We'll definitely do a deep dive on Frank Lloyd Wright, because he was all about incorporating organic, the landscape around you and organic. But getting back to this, what struck me, Max, is just how similar the Burj Khalifa looks to his original design.
Yeah, the Illinois, which is rather fascinating.
So did Mr. Smith take inspiration from that? Was that part?
I believe
there
so.
Engineering considerations with this? So.
But they also took inspiration from nature, as Frank Lloyd Wright would much enjoy. They took, as far as its shape goes, they took inspiration from what's called the spider lily in terms of its shape, because the Burj Khalifa, if you look down at it, it has a very unique shape. Not only that, but like if you like dig into the guts of it, so to say, it also has a very unique foundation too. The kind of going back to our discussion of how the heck is it still standing while it's on sand?
Yeah, well, that part does kind of hurt the brain.
Exactly. But what they use to support the superstructure is a large reinforced concrete mat, which in turn is supported by these things called concrete piles, which are like these beams that dig into the ground and everything.
Yeah.
It had a lot of forethought and everything in terms of its construction. And then what's rather interesting too is the foundation is like the central pillar and everything, or like the core of the Burj Khalifa is hexagonal, and then it has these like and then like there's these Y-shaped foundations. They call them buttresses, for lack of a better term, that kind of like additionally support the foundations. So it has a lot of forethought and everything. And the part that you found rather interesting, Joe, was how it's able to like withstand the wind.
Well, there's several issues. There's lightning, there's wind, and then it's the fact that it was built on sand. And they talk about they built this. If you look at it from above, and if you sort of did if you panned around it, you notice there's a spiral shape. And Allan, it says it confuses the wind.
That is correct.
So the wind hits it and it sort of spirals down and dissipates. Is that what I mean? That's pretty brilliant.
All right, I have to take you to Dallas, Texas, to answer that question.
Okay. Allan can never just give a direct answer.
I'm going to give you a great example.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great example of inadvertently the city of Dallas, when they were building their downtown, recreated a canyon system.
Oh.
So what happens is the wind comes across from one point, and when it hits downtown, it now channels down between the buildings. And if you get a nice, really big gust of air, you might come out of a building on one side, and at the end of the building, not where you're standing, but at the end of the building, it looks like a scene from Yellow Brick Road. As everything goes blowing by at 60 miles an hour.
It's funny you say that. Not to segue, but I think this is when I did a job where I was there for like 3 or 4 weeks. I was about a block from the Clark Tower, which here in Memphis, folks, that's about almost a 50-story building, and it's basically a rectangle. It is as flat as it could be.
Right.
it was a constant wind tunnel. Now, in the summer, it felt great, but in the winter, it's freezing over there. And so basically the wind's hitting that and just bouncing. Right. So that's something to consider. And especially if you're going a half a mile up in the air, the stresses that puts on a building. So.
And one of the big things that was done, because the original architect is from Chicago being,
very
quote
windy.
unquote, the windy city, which was more about their politicians than their weather. But they still have quite a bit of weather.
It's windy there, Alan, I can tell you.
They have quite a bit of weather coming off that lake.
Right.
So this was a huge core idea, was that we're going to have to deal with heat and air.
Sure.
Because if you think about the height of this thing and the amount of heat that it takes and how much metal actually expands and contracts, this building is constantly in motion.
Well, they say at the very peak of this thing, it can flex up to 6 feet.
Yes.
That's pretty, you're like, oh, that's a lot. I mean, I don't know what that, but it seems like all of these structures that still stand today, and even that 1,300-year-old Japanese structure that Max brought us before, it seems like the same concept. There's a rigid center, but flexible on the outside. Like they built in flexibility.
And that's kind of interesting too, because like the part of the Burj Khalifa is also inspired by ancient Islamic structures and everything from the 9th century. And you see there's like a central part of it that I feel, but around it is like a spiral. So there's enough flexibility and everything constructed by the spiral, but still like a strong central core.
I mean, what you're describing sounds like a tree. You have the trunk, and then you have all these branches that are moving around, but they're a healthy tree.
You're actually kind of on it, because if you actually look directly down over it, if you were to go to like one of the Earth programs and take a look at it, there's a very popular picture of the Hymenocalyx flower. Is this big 3-lobed flower that gave them inspiration to the design of the building.
Sure. Yeah.
It is actually, if you look down at it, it is kind of like an abstract rendering of this flower. And it's because, again, we don't have if you look at this, there's not a lot of sharp edges.
Right.
Now, we talked about another building, the marina, which look like stacked coins.
Oh, yeah.
And again, we're getting away from these sharp, flat surfaces which push against wind. They becomes a wind wrestling match.
Right. You need the wind to, like it said, confuse it, and it hits it, but it doesn't. Yeah. It spins.
We need that air. We need that air to twirl around it, but not grab the building and sway it and try to push it.
Well, and like I said, it's remarkable to me that the design is so similar to Frank Lloyd Wright's, because his looked like there was a spiral feature too. So it's just I find that highly interesting. I don't know. I mean, either he was a mad scientist genius that was ahead of his time, or it just happens to be, something. But
it's kind of like everybody complains that most efficient cars today, no matter who makes them, all resemble each other greatly.
Yeah.
And that is because of wind tunnels.
Right.
The research has shown certain shapes do a better job.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to make a fuel-efficient vehicle, then you're going to go with the shapes and styles that do the best job.
Sure.
So you'll notice a lot more soft curves in the world than there are hard edges.
The other part, too, is you're dealing with sandstorms. Because you don't want something flat where the sand, you do want things to just blow past you. But Max, it's also basically a lightning rod. I mean, the top portion of the tower is basically there to attract lightning, right? So, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. It's meant to be like the lightning rod of Dubai and everything. It's like the tallest structure in Dubai and everything. So why not like, let it detract from the lightning that goes on in any other place? Especially since Dubai is like becoming like a international, is kind of becoming, for lack of a better term, an international bazaar, an international like.
It's a big place of trade, I suppose, too, and business. But the nice thing is this thing attracts all the lightning in the neighborhood, and it protects. It actually is like it protects the other buildings around it.
Especially, there's this funny structure in Dubai called the Dubai Frame, which is literally like the world's largest picture frame. So
I've
you do
seen
not
that.
want lightning striking that bad boy.
Yeah, I don't know how the wind reacts to that. I don't know if that one is, cooperates. But that sort of inspired the discussion we had earlier about, okay, well, they're attracting the lightning and dissipating it, but we're saying, hey, the next level thinking is capturing that and powering
capturing
stuff with it.
So,
But
can we keep in mind, the size of this building, imagine this, 28,000 hand-cut glass panels.
it's pretty impressive. We encourage you, go down a deep dive on this. Get on YouTube. There's some great videos, but the Burj Khalifa definitely qualifies as a great moment in building history. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and then, Alan, we've got to get to my kitchen remodel update.
We do.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allen.
Sorry about the mess. I've really let the place go since you killed me. By the way, thanks for that.
Sarcasm self-test complete.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Alan gets those alerts on his smartphone all the time. I don't know what kind of security system you've got or something else.
She's my kind of gal.
I don't know. That's his weird AI let's move along. Anyway, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass, who sometimes brings us rejoiners that I don't know how to react to.
Which is good.
Probably ought to just keep my mouth shut. You can call or text us at the we don't want you to keep your mouth shut.
No.
We want you to call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook, give us a like, check out all the action over there, including our must-have item of the week. And just a reminder, folks, because we've been enjoying getting your text messages and your voicemails. If you want to send us a text message, you can also send us a text message with pictures.
Indeed.
To reinforce your point or to, make it more interesting. You can do that any day of the week, any time of the day, 24 hours a day at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. But if you want to leave a voice message and it's outside of the show hours, leave it at 901-921-7105. All right, Alan, real quick, this happens every time we go to break.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody sends a text. Somebody texted a minute ago about we've got a lot to get to, Alan, so we can't dwell on it, but somebody had a comment about the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah,
so.
Scott sent me a text that said, fun fact about the Khalifa. It is so tall that the sun sets 3 minutes apart from the top to the bottom floor.
So if you want to watch the sunset twice, you're at the top of the building.
You could just
you zip down the or no, I
right.
guess you do it in reverse, right? You'd be at the bottom of the building and then zip up to the top, right?
I'm just thinking you just chase the sun up and down as
Okay.
it rises or sets.
That is a fun fact, I suppose. And of course, because it's out there in the desert, you probably could do that, and it's probably a pretty spectacular sunset. So
Well, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that just easing down over the far side of the desert there?
Pretty
that would be
cool.
amazing.
All right, we got quite a bit to get to, Alan, so let's do it.
Alrighty.
So I want to update you. The reason I'm doing this is because I feel like a lot of people might be in this same situation. I want to update you about my kitchen remodeling project. So, okay, if you're just, if you're new to Tool Talk Radio, over the last few weeks, we finally have done it. My kids are a little older now, so I've done quite a bit of work around my house. I'm not going to, I'm no slouch when it comes to that. However, we have never gone for the full kitchen remodel. We've changed things here or there. We've done, whatever improvements, but we're changing the floor. We're changing the cabinet doors. We're changing the countertop, adding a vent hood, changing the stove, a new sink. We're new light fixtures. We're basically redoing the whole thing. Every bit of the kitchen is getting a facelift or getting things replaced, which my wife and I have never actually done. We've never done the kitchen remodel because they say that's the one that'll really test your metal. That's pretty that can be very disruptive.
Well, especially when you're going from a closed concept to an open concept and your house is nothing but sheetrock dust for about 8 weeks.
Right. Well,
however, you're doing it. You see, you already had a decent sized kitchen.
Well, we got a nice, we do have a nice kitchen to work with. So that's we don't have to rip things out to get,
Yeah,
get
you
more
don't
space.
have one of those late 70s, galley kitchens where, a person the size of old Max over here fit, and that was about the only person that made it into the kitchen.
And
you've got room. I mean, so you had some room to start with, and you have that kind of late 50s, early 60s kind of box layout.
Right. And the one thing is, I basically can do just about all this work myself. I don't think there's any. I think there's one little minor thing I might call an electrician in for, but basically, it's a lot of grunt labor. It's a lot of design. But what the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this has to do with design. This has to do with basically a design mindset, I would call it.
Okay.
And because as I'm uncovering things, I ripped this one thing I had built like 15 years ago out. And as a result, I uncovered some past paint colors that we had used on the walls. So there was like, my wife and I are looking at it, we're like, how did we ever choose these colors? We were excited. We picked out this
Spent money
burgundy
even, right.
paint color. We picked out this gold color. We picked out this sort of taupe color. And we're looking at it and we're like, we can't even stand looking at it now. And yet at the time, we thought it was great. We don't even like the paint color that's in there right now. And I was like, how does this happen? And I feel like, you've talked about like legacy thinking and just sort of you get into I would say a pattern with your choices when it comes to design. So our goal with this was to get out of our comfort zone and to rethink it. And so we kind of came up with this philosophy as we're doing it. And I want to run it by you, Allan. So
okay,
So basically, we're going to break this into two categories. I'm going to say everything's replaceable, but there's some things that are a little more work to replace than others. Right. Like tile or like your countertops or like your cabinets or things like that. And we talked about flooring these days is kind of easy to replace, but you don't necessarily want to do it. So what our approach for this was we thought, okay, instead of going nuts, because one of the gripes we had with our old floor is the color is kind of dated and it was a terracotta floor. At the time it was trendy, but within a few years we were tired of it. So our new approach is for those types of installations, pick something with more or less classic colors, but has at least one feature of interest. For example, we're doing a subway tile backsplash, and it's just basically a bright, shiny white tile. However, it has this really interesting wavy texture to it, which is kind of a point of interest.
Okay.
We're doing the same with our cabinets. We have, instead of just a plain door, we have there's one little edge. It's just going to be a plain white door, but it's got a point of interest. We did the same with the flooring. And by doing that, I feel like it's not going to date itself as quickly, but yet it still has something interesting. So,
well, I have what I'm called the IKEA syndrome that's going to strike in about 7 years.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go back to every one of these home renovation shows 7 years from now, and they're going to be going, we got to get rid of the all-white kitchen.
Which they were selling.
Which is the hottest thing going for the last couple of years.
Right.
Yeah, the big thing is, what is the hottest thing in the trend right now? And to be honest, be horribly honest with yourself. Are you fascinated by it, or do you like it?
Yeah, because I've seen some pretty funky backsplashes with tile that I do not think is going to... It's going back to like 70s, lime green, accents. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it might look fun right now, but I'm not...
But you got to picture, how tired am I going to get of this? How soon?
Which is something, so that was our approach there. Yeah, we changed our point of view on that. And then, but here's what we did, so, because we're not boring and we don't want to think of ourselves as old or anything. So what we did with, like, light fixtures. Yeah, so the easy to change things like light fixtures or cabinet hardware or paint colors, we'll have a little more fun with those. Like the light fixture, if it get a really fun light fixture. If you don't like it, just change it. That is one of the easiest things in the world to change. And that way it keeps your kitchen, interesting and fun. So
another thing to factor into this is factor in the actual realities of your life at this point. You don't have 4-year-olds running around in the kitchen.
That's true. Yeah, we can have something a little cooler.
You don't have little children running around. You don't have 12 dogs. Right. You don't have, there's a lot of things that people allow to dictate
Yeah.
or have to allow to dictate where they're going to be at. Now you've got all your children are grown,
Right.
and they're going to come visit and all that kind of stuff, but they're grown people.
Yeah.
So you can have grown people taste of little dinosaurs on the floor mats. You don't have to have them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's lots of little things to take into consideration. But I do like what you said about thinking about your classic lines
Yeah.
of, a subway tile, while not particularly to my taste, is a classic. The subway tile has been a classic for 80 years.
Yeah.
Guess what?
It's
always going to be a standard.
right. Right. But don't go. Yeah. But maybe a lime green subway tile is
Is
going to be
not
something you're
always
probably
going to be a standard. Or
Right.
the Halloween version with little spooky faces on it. That's
Right.
going to be cute for a year or two, and all of your Halloween friends are going to think it's hilarious. But 3 years from now, you're going to be like, oh, why did I do this?
Here's something else that I noticed. So basically, this happened. Our first home we ever built, and this was, this or not built. The first home we ever owned. We had I would almost call this a traumatic paint experience. We bought this paint, and on the color chip, it looked cool. It was sort of a tan color and kind of just, whatever. It was just a clean, nice taupe, we could call it. Well, when we put it on the wall, it actually made the wall look pink.
Yes.
Because folks, if you're out there, if you use something, if you're looking at the color chart and there's a brown base, like if you it starts from the lightest to the darkest color. If you get down to the bottom of the chart and you've got kind of a chocolate brown, there is a risk that one of those middle colors will turn pink on you. So as a result, I steered clear of anything even close to that color.
Okay.
Some designer told me that if you have an olive base to something, it won't do that. So as a result, for years, we had all these olive-based colors, and it limited our choice because I felt like I was traumatized by that pink wall.
Well, you probably were. However, the thing to keep in mind, and this is one of these crazy things where I was working with a decorator in our house a few years ago, and he turned around and looked at me and goes, "All right, we're going to paint this wall black."
Right.
And I went, no, we're not. And he just looked at me and goes, "You're just going to have to trust the finish."
Okay.
And because this is
If
the
it's
wall,
shiny or flat, that's a big difference too.
Big difference, but
Yeah.
this was where a lot of the things that were going to be installed on the walls were going to go. And by the time we got done with it, what he basically had was a black outline and frame around everything. And it turned out fabulous. But that took years of experience to
Allan,
visualize.
I hate when you and I are thinking alike, but you just hit the next point of my note. Because here's the thing. Bingo. You're not when you're renovating the kitchen. Right now our kitchen is sort of empty.
Right.
Because obviously I'm removing things. I'm tearing open walls and stuff like that. Well, you have to our goal with the wall color in particular or the tile color, it's not so much of we want to make our statement with that. We want it to be a blank canvas, and what we put on it is going to pop. So now that's why we'll go with a little bit of a lighter color wall or a black wall, like you said. That's pretty cool because it's the finished result. It's the canvas that you're putting the statement on.
It's not the any one feature.
Right, right.
I'm not particularly a big fan of green.
Mm-hmm.
However, against a certain wood tone that I like, against a certain floor color that I like, then this was the obvious choice to blend all of this to get the end result I was looking for.
Right.
So
right.
it's not the individual choice that you're up against. It's the, what am I going to get at the end of this?
Yeah.
And you may make a couple of uncomfortable choices where you're just looking at this color going, man, I'm not sure this is what I want on my wall. But you got to keep in mind, it's not the only thing you're going to be seeing.
Right.
And is it going to accent and highlight what you want to look at?
Yeah, exactly. So
in my case, of course, it's going to be the stove.
Yeah, everything's got to
show-
direct your attention to the stove. That's true.
All right, in your kitchen, it's either going to be the fridge, the stove, or the sink.
Right.
What is your selling point in this house? Do you have an island? Or do you not have an island?
Well, we don't have an island, but it's I would say.
But see, these are the selling points.
Yeah.
When you walk in the kitchen, All right, you walk into your living room, and your living room or your den or your great room, the selling point is the entertainment center, the television, the fireplace. There's something in the room that's the selling point.
Hopefully, it's like some artwork or something.
Well, or even it could just be the furniture. The couch is the selling point of the room. So when you walk into the kitchen, where do you want, if I come over to visit, what do you want me to see first as I walk into your kitchen?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know yet, Alan. Don't ask me because we're still figuring it out. But
this is an idea for you when you walk into your kitchen, now that it's going to be a new kitchen. Where do you want your eye to go?
Yeah.
Is it going to be to the cool collection of dried fruits and vegetables you've got on display? Or is it going to be the open air dish rack? Or is it going to be the spice cabinet? Or, there's so many different ways of pitching how you want the kitchen to look.
Yeah. What I would say, though, is if you're somebody that's owned a home or if you've done quite a bit of renovation yourself and you walk in and you ask yourself, why do I get tired of this stuff so quickly? Why am I repainting every 3 years?
Right.
Try to get out of your, maybe try to get out of the mindset, because I found ourselves in this process falling into old habits, and then we broke the habits. So we're going to see what happens, because we've changed a lot of the way, we've changed our direction on things, and we've tried to get rid of that legacy thinking. But so far, we're very happy with the results. It's going to, and I'll post pictures when it's finished. But it's been cool, Alan. I'm learning a lot about human psychology and just whatever. But it's pretty exciting because, like I said, we've never done the kitchen. I've done many things besides that. But
and here's the worst possible case scenario: is there anything truly about this that you couldn't change in 5 years?
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, that's sort of the modular nature of the flooring and the things like that. That's true.
Exactly.
It's easier to change than it used to be.
So, again, technology changes in the materials that we use over the last 30 years has made this a very different installation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Alan, like I said, I'll keep everybody posted on that, but we've got a few things to get to.
Okay.
So before we get to that, can you quickly tell us what's going on with darkoakmedia.com? Because you sent me some content last night. So
Well, we've got a lot going on these days. Of course, we post the Tool Talk and Geek Tank Radio. The Food Dude has been kind of a big thing going on right now, so I have a tendency
heard every Thursday morning.
Yeah, every Thursday morning on this station, I show up and feed people and give them something new.
Alan, I don't know if that's always a good thing. I was listening to the Food Dude segment this Thursday, and Danny Bruns was in the studio.
Yes.
She barely talked because she was eating.
She was having a great time.
You're kind of inhibiting the broadcast.
Breakfast Quesadillas, it was kind of a quiet show.
Yeah, she was pretty excited about that. But anyway.
We're having a good time with that.
The Food Dude is rocking.
Yeah, the Food Dude is rocking. And, of course, it came from the international market, starring our buddy Scott J. Carroll as the main guy. They have to try strange snack foods and other things that come from around the globe and report on it. So,
it's on your Roku TV, too.
It's on Geeky Side TV on Roku. It is also at YouTube and Spotify. So they can just pop over to darkoakmedia.com and take a look.
Okay, cool. All right, now for my shameless plug, if you need a deck or a pergola or a patio cover or really anything interesting made out of wood for the outside of your home, that's sort of my game. I like those types of projects. You can get in touch with me directly at 901-921-7105 or visit my website, thorshomes.com. And actually, I encourage you to do that anyway. There's a few little things on there I barely ever talk about, Alan. There's I've written 2 children's books. They're pretty interesting. They as an outgrowth of the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention. I put those up there. They're pretty cool. Beautiful artwork. I didn't do the artwork. Somebody else did. But also you can see the wood turnings that I do, some of the baseball bats that I made for former Cubs players before they were unmercifully traded and, whatever.
I thought that was a mercy kill.
Unceremoniously traded.
Unceremoniously,
I'm still, you haven't heard me talk a lot about baseball this year.
Nope, it's been nice.
Anyway, go to thorshomes.com or give me a call, 901-921-7105. All right, before we get out of here, Alan, we got a couple pieces of business today. Tell people what I'm holding up for our must-have item of the week.
Ta-da! It is the Quickie Padlock.
It's a padlock. It's a pretty simple one. And I mean, who doesn't know what a padlock is?
It's just simple, but they I cannot tell you the number of times I have used them for non-traditional uses.
Well, what's interesting when you go to the big box store is you see quite a variety of padlocks and a lot of different price points. And I feel like padlocks should be changed out from time to time because, for one thing, like this one, for example, is for our fence outside.
Right.
Well, because there's latches that you lock. Well, padlocks take a beating out in the rain and everything. And I feel like some of the technology improves. Even if you have a rust-resistant padlock, though, I find it a good idea to change it out. What do you think?
Yeah, just get a new one every so often.
And
they're not that expensive.
They're useful to keep around. Like if you've got some, maybe you've got a pantry at the house and you're trying to keep your kids from eating all of the food that you want. Well, just padlock it, right? Oh, there we go.
All right. Now, I've used padlocks on numerous occasions, especially when I've been working with chains, around that. And you always find that you need to tie that chain together or you need to link them together somehow.
Yeah.
Slap a little padlock on that. Boom.
Yeah.
And you've got a good tight connection.
And I've been using this trailer that my friend, the coach, loaned me, and it's important to padlock that when I'm parked somewhere where I'm going to be there for a while.
Right.
So keep a few padlocks on hand. They're cheap and they're useful. And when you need it, you need it.
Yep.
Okay, pretty straightforward must-have item of the week. All right, Allan, I think if we've got a little time, it seems like we can at least once again continue our debate about ladders with another point counterpoint. Is this a legitimate point counterpoint? I don't know, but Max can't find the hotkey.
I'll just wait for you guys before I start doing the little.
Just press the button.
Yeah.
Press the button,
well,
Max.
anyway.
Max, press the button.
If you were listening last week, you know that we got into a discussion about ladders that quickly devolved into really one of my. Okay, I'm not talking about the trusty A-frame ladder, unless of course you're using a wood ladder. Those things I do not support.
I pick on them. Yeah.
Or an extension ladder. I was specifically zeroing in on these I don't know what you call them, multi-purpose ladders where they can fold up in several different positions, and I'm not really a fan of those. Allan, you were singing their praises, and I'm just going to let you know here's what I have an issue with. For one thing, standing on those things hurts your feet after. The rungs are more, they're not as comfortable. Like if you go up on an extension ladder, or especially an A-frame ladder, you have more room to stand. It's a flatter surface. But my beef, it has to do with the connection points. I don't trust them, man. I'm sorry. All right. You're putting your life on the line for one little thin piece of metal.
I have seen far too many suspension ladders collapse. I have seen far too many A-frame ladders not set up properly. And at least with, and I'm going to say the good name brand, platform style or convertible ladders, when they lock into place, they lock into place solidly. So I have discovered that I will trust one of them a long time before I will trust a standard slide-up extension ladder.
I guess my thing, too, is if you put it into a weird position, like you could literally make this ladder into an L shape.
Yes.
And then you lean over a staircase or something like that. I also feel like if you make an unusual shape and you put a lot of weight, let's suppose you weigh 300 pounds or something like that.
I
feel like
a
you're
little
taking your
called out
life.
here, but it's okay.
No, I mean, you know what I mean? Why do we bring this up at the end of the show, Allan?
Because you know I'm going to start defending it.
Next week, maybe we
surprise,
Max. Let's bring this back. Let's get to this earlier, Allan, because I think ladder safety is its own discussion, and I don't know why I brought it up at the end of the show. Other than that's why you don't tease stuff,
That's
early.
right. It's all right.
Whatever. What are we going to do about it? Well, another weird episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, folks. So on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.